On the 13th of July 2019, Newcastle paid £40 million for a man from Hoffenheim that none of us had really heard of. Joelinton was his name, and this was a time when we had Fat Mike Ashley, the toxic previous owner who barely ever spent a penny, barely even got a player, and it was mainly loan signings, so we were all excited as hell to see this much splashed on what was our record transfer at the time. Fast forward 4 years, and I'm absolutely delighted to say that Joelinton has finally got a call up to the Brazil squad for the first ever time. Absolutely over the moon for him. But it's in that 4 years since he signed for us to now that I think we have witnessed one of the greatest transformations in football history, as Joelinton went from being labelled as one of the biggest Premier League flops for his price tag by Newcastle fans, neutrals, journalists, pundits, you name it, to now being in that Brazil squad for the first time, where I hope he stays. I would never normally do a video about someone getting a call up to their national team, but the Joelinton transformation story deserves a video because he's one of my favourite players. And it's coming up, Newcastle fans, so do us a favour, make sure you stick around.
It's Brasília, e olha o corpo nele, no feito his brilliant, his Joelinton.
That's right, Newcastle fans, Joelinton has finally done it. Finally, the man has got what I'm sure him and his family have all been absolutely desperate for. That Brazil call-up, and if I'm being totally honest with you, it should have happened at the World Cup. I know a lot of managers don't like to experiment with a new player in a big tournament like a World Cup, but the form Joelinton was in going into December in the winter time, I think he should have got in then. And I'm absolutely over the moon for him. But before we get into the full transformation story and the video that I think Joelinton deserves, which is why I'm doing one, do us a favour, Newcastle fans, give us a little likey loo, whack that subscribe button, because it just makes all this video editing a little bit more worth it. And as you can already tell, there's going to be more videos coming like this now that the match previews and the match vlogs are all out the window. Which is sad. But hey, there's still going to be shit tons to talk about as we start spending that. So let's get into things. Now, the interesting thing for me, looking back on the Joelinton story, is Julian Nagelsmann, who's obviously just lost his job at Bayern Munich, wrongly in my opinion, and with Thomas Tuchel taking over. When he was the manager of Joelinton, before we signed him, he described him as an animal, an absolute animal. Now, he came into the football club for £40 million, as I said at the start of this video, record transfer fee for us at the time. And we were all excited. I didn't know anything about him. I just knew that he was tall as hell and he was Brazilian. And I think every football fan in England gets excited when they hear Brazilian. And sure enough, he came in. He was under Steve Bruce at the time, so of course he was going to be battling relegation under Mike Ashley as well. And Steve Bruce just chucked him in. It wasn't a Steve Bruce signing. This was a one that was definitely done behind the scenes. I think it was a kind of confirmed that it was a deal that had been agreed in the previous January window. So Steve Bruce had nothing to do with it. He came in and he was just chucked in from the get-go in that first season. I think Steve Bruce had the mentality, he's tall, he's expensive, he's Brazilian, let's give him the number 9 shirt, the prestigious number 9, and chuck him in. And he was absolutely shite. I said it, you said it, the journalists said it, the pundits said it, the neutrals said it. He was shite. Could not hit a barn door. In fact, he never even made it to the barn to even reach the door with the ball. He looked so unnatural in front of goal. When he was in them positions, a bit of a fish out of water. Of course, there was the adapting process to the pace of the Premier League that any foreign player coming into England has to deal with. And he was feeding off scraps in a poor Newcastle team. And we all looking around thinking, how the hell is this guy worth 40 million? And he was causing frustration in the stands, of course he was. A player is never going to be able to shy away from a price tag. It's never a player's fault. But the fact he was given the number 9, which again wasn't his fault, he didn't look out of sorts. I think we could all see there was attributes there. His physicality, he was pretty decent in the air. He looked like he could run with the ball pretty solid when he did have the ball at his feet. But generally speaking, his return, and he ended up getting 10 goals in 80 games in his first 2 seasons. And it just wasn't good enough. And we were all scratching our heads. And that's when the talk of him being one of the biggest Premier League flops came about. Callum Wilson comes into the football club and the number 9 shirt gets passed on. And at the time, we all thinking, Jesus Christ, nothing can go right for Joelinton here. He looks one of our worst players, one of our biggest price tags. And now he's given up the number 9 shirt because he's just probably fed up with it and he's not living up to it. And Callum Wilson obviously said, thank you very much. So after his first 2 seasons, totally out of sorts. Now what was interesting for me to find out was when all that was going on, Joelinton, being the man he is, wanting to improve and wanting to prove his worth in a Newcastle shirt, actually hired his own fitness coach and analyst to analyse his performances, work on where he was going wrong, work on where he could improve, while simultaneously with the fitness coach, get faster, stronger, quicker. And that was all going on behind the scenes. That was all off his own back, not on the Newcastle training ground. And we didn't start the season very well, as we all know. The less said about Steve Bruce's time, the better. Steve Bruce loses his job. Eddie Howe comes in. We are bottom of the league, down and out. And Eddie Howe's got something to do with him. Eddie Howe will have already known about Joelinton and probably thought the same as us from the outside looking in. Couple of attributes there, but not the greatest. And in Eddie Howe's first 2 games in charge, he played him in a front 3 against Brentford when we drew 3-3. He played him in a 4-4-2 with Callum Wilson when we lost 2-0 away at Arsenal in his first away game. Eddie Howe's first away game. And he still looked out of sorts. And then on that famous day against Norwich at home, relegation 6-pointer, when Kieran Clark got sent off after 5-6 minutes, I think it was, and we were all shitting our pants, Joelinton moved into midfield. And whether that was planned, whether Eddie Howe had seen it a bit in training to suggest he could play there, we'll never know. I don't think Eddie Howe's ever answered that, but he moved in, and that was the day that Joelinton never looked back. He did not look back. He was brilliant that night. We managed to get a point in difficult circumstances, a very valuable point at the time. And Eddie Howe saw something. And I think a couple of us in the stands, maybe not in that one game that he came in because there was so much else going on, panic over whether we could get something from Norwich, the panic of the Kieran Clark red card, but we saw a battling performance and Joelinton was part of that. And Eddie Howe, I think, that in that very moment thought, right, he's not a striker. He's not a winger. This is where I want him. And he really didn't look back at all. And I tell you what, the one performance for me that has been the standout performance in Joelinton's transformation under Eddie Howe has to be that game against Man United the following Christmas. Just after Christmas. 1-1 we drew when St Maximin scored. Should have beat them 4-0 that day. Don't know how we didn't win the game. I think Cavani equalised. Joelinton was absolutely incredible. He was here, he was there, he was everywhere. He was making McTominay look like a Sunday League player. He was making Fred look like a Sunday League player. He was taking people on. There was a famous Megs on Rashford that went viral on a video. He was brilliant, carrying the ball, aggression, tackles, second balls. And Sean Longstaff came out after that game and we all thought he was just saying it to give Joelinton a bit of support after the trouble he'd had the previous 2 years. He came out and he said that in training, Joelinton is the one everybody wants on their team in mini games because that team always wins. And surely that has been proved. And that season, Joelinton last year went on to win our Player of the Year, deservedly, for that transformation. And as we sit here today, Joelinton is one of the most important players in the Newcastle team for me. Eddie Howe's style of play suits him perfectly. What Joelinton offers to our midfield now that he's found his home of where he should be as a footballer, is that carrying of the ball that we maybe saw quite early in his career. The second balls, which are so imperative to what Eddie Howe likes to do in terms of retaining possession and then carrying the ball back forward. He's progressive passes. He's good in the air. He's got that fire in the belly where you can almost guarantee every single week Joelinton is going to get a yellow card. And every Newcastle team needs a shithouse. And Joelinton is one of the best shithouses I've seen in a Newcastle shirt in my lifetime supporting this club. He fights till the last whistle. His fitness levels are fantastic. That aggression is amazing to see, particularly from a Brazilian. And in last year, you could have been a little bit critical of him in terms of his play and said he maybe doesn't add enough in the final third, goals-wise, and you name it. This season, he's improved in that area. He's so much better in and around the box. He's added goals. And he just looks like he's getting better and better and better. When Joelinton is not in this Newcastle team, we are a much worse Newcastle team. And his transformation from Premier League flop, expensive Premier League flop, to the powerhouse that he is today, I see enough in him today, if he continues progressing and working on his game, to suggest that he could become a Patrick Vieira for us. I was lucky enough to be able to watch Patrick Vieira growing up, and he was a fantastic player who had that aggression, would go toe-to-toe with anyone, would square up to anyone, but also had the passing ability, the good feet, the ability to carry the ball, to lead the midfield. And I do see similarities. I really, really do. The thing Joelinton has above that is that ability to win second balls, that ability to maybe have a little bit more class in the final third than what a Patrick Vieira did. And he's versatile. Let's not forget that. He can play on the front three of that left. We've seen him and Joe Willock so many times this season, which has been amazing for us in getting Champions League, cause defenders havoc by switching over. And there's even an argument to suggest the transformed Joelinton, if you put him back into a striker role, not that Eddie Howe ever would, but in a parallel universe where Isak's injured, where Callum Wilson's injured, I think he'd be a better striker. I do. That might be controversial, and I don't think that might be one of them unanswered rhetorical things we'll never find out. I think he'd be a lot better. He'd be a lot more calm and confident in front of goal. Look at his goal against West Ham, casually taking the ball around the keeper when we won 5-1 away. Look at his goal when he ran through against West Ham in injury time. Another great finish. He's amazing. He is. And he has to be in some Newcastle fans' shout for a player of the season. I know most people are giving it to Kieran Trippier. I'm going to do a separate video on who mine is. I'm going to keep that one quiet. But Joelinton's transformation story that's now been finished off with a Brazil cap, well, call up, hopefully a cap, is nothing short of incredible. And you will struggle to find anywhere in world football a bigger turnaround. Bearing in mind, he also turned around his position. Not just his reputation, his position. And I love the guy, and he's so hard not to like, because Newcastle have a very famous expression since that flag was once bared in a match. We don't demand a team that wins, we demand a team that tries. Joelinton, no one is going to graft harder in that Newcastle team than Joelinton, in my opinion. And that's probably why he's the yellow card maestro. And long may it continue, and I'm excited to see what he can do for this Brazil team, because I think that Brazil team is only going to benefit from all of them factors I've just talked about. The carrying of the ball, the aggression in midfield. I know Bruno's Brazil career hasn't quite got going. Joelinton could offer them something very different. He's class above Fred. I know they're very, very different players. Casemiro's a classy player, and I'm not going to deny that, as much as it pains me to talk positive about a Man United player. So I'm not going to say he's any class above Casemiro. Very, very different players. But in terms of that bite in midfield, wow. I cannot wait to see what he can do, and this is only going to push him on to work harder. And I am absolutely over the moon for the transformation king. I am the Incredible Hulk, whatever what you want to call him. The Geordie Pele shithouse, that's probably another decent nickname. Absolutely over the moon, and what a story. What a turnaround that I feel blessed to have witnessed in the last 4 years. Even his song's catchy. He's even got a catchy song, just to cap it off. Newcastle fans, please let me know what you think of Joelinton's turnaround. Let me know what you think about his Brazil call. You probably already know about it because this video is coming out late on that. I did just want to talk about it because these things are the type of transformations you just don't see very often. I called him worse than shit. Now he's one of my favourite players, and now he's gone from down and out, getting his own fitness coach, to being part of the Brazil setup, one of the most famous international teams, most successful international teams in the world, that create pools of talent year upon year upon year from their homeland. Fair play, Joelinton. I absolutely love you, and I cannot wait to see what you do in the Champions League. Let us know your thoughts, Newcastle fans. There's so many more videos to come. We are going to get round to the end of season conversations, the season review conversations, of course we are. So you don't want to miss them. So whack that like, whack that subscribe, and let us know your favourite Joelinton moment. Maybe we've all got different ones. This is a Joelinton tribute video. So let us know yours in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. How are the lads?